Good morning and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 207. The title of today's show, Win with Team Play versus Skill. We have a question that somebody came in with and asked, how is it that how do I know how much of a gap I can make up for in terms of player skill with team play in League of Legends? So this is a 5-person game, and we're going to answer that on the show today, as well as a number of other called-in questions. My name is Weldon, and this is the Ask Weldon Show, where you call in a question and then I answer it. And I answer it with my background as a sports psychology trainer. I have a master's of science in sport and exercise psychology, and also my background, coaching professional esport athletes and coaching professional or amateur, also traditional sport athletes in swimming, coaching kids in soccer. We could do that one as well, or just being a parent or whatever it is. I have a lot of questions coming in about relationships and advice and life as well, simply because I enjoy spouting off what it is that I have to say. So you can call in your question at anchor.fm/Weldon Green, and that is a little app that is used to listen to podcasts that you can do call-in questions to my podcast. So you can find me at Weldon Green on that app, and you can call in your question for the show. You can also check out the show live every single day, twitch.tv/MindGamesWeldon. 7 p.m. Los Angeles time is when the show kicks off, but at 6:30 p.m. the stream goes live, LA time, and you can chat with me in the audience, and we answer all of your questions, and we get to have a dialogue. So it's kind of like an upgraded, on steroids version of this show, where we get to go back and forth and dialogue and answer things more in depth, kind of like in the pre and post versions of this show. Twitch.tv/MindGamesWeldon, 6:30 p.m. LA time, every single day. Okay, let's jump into the show. Like I said, the first question today is from Cameron, and they're asking about team play versus rank for winning. Oh, I didn't prep the little cards for this, so I'm just going to play these.
Hi, Weldon. I was wondering, what amount of skill difference or MMR difference can great team
Really sorry, guys. Did not have that adjusted.
play realistically overcome an amateur league?
Let's start it over.
Hi, Weldon. I was wondering, what amount of skill difference or MMR difference can great team play realistically overcome in amateur leagues? For example, Platinum Cap tournaments.
Okay, so this question is something I actually cover usually in my pro team workshops on the first or second day. So when I'm working with a pro team, I have a little graphic, basically shows like, this is the cumulative skill level of your team. You know, you take all the player skills, stack them on top of each other, and it's like a bar chart this high. This is the output performance of your team. So it can be like equivalent to that or lower based on your team play. It's your team play that activates that. So you can activate like 100% of your player skill amalgamated together if you have perfect team play. Otherwise, in the system, theoretically, you're going to be producing less than your theoretical maximum output of all of your players' skills combined together, because your team play is going to reduce that, or is going to suffer that. So I would say that essentially, the answer to this, Cameron, does not depend on, well, it does depend on how good your team play is, but it depends on how bad your opponent's team play is. Because at some point, if their team play is good enough, they're going to combine for a much better team than you. So it's just their team play has to be worse that their player skill becomes irrelevant. So you just want to work on greasing your wheels, right? I personally think that one of the best ways to ensure that your team is going to win is to focus on the two phases of the game discretely. So focus on laning phase, and then focus on team play. Focus on team play during the laning phase as well, sure. But then focus on the skirmishing and team fight and rotation phase of the game like as a separate thing, because you can jump way ahead of your skill level in rank if you just focus on that 7 to 9 minutes of laning phase, and then you just focus on grouping, and you ignore the 11 minutes laning phase stuff. So that's where you're going to be exposed, right? If you're thinking in terms of how it is that you train, you can really eliminate a lot of parts of the game that you need to focus on and that you need to improve if you play with a very certain style and if you emphasize your own team's team play. So what are the ways that you can really push the team play button as far as you can? Well, play a very specific kind of style, play a very, very small set of champion pools, and make sure that you know the interactions of all those champions like the back of your hand, and work on skirmishing and team fighting with them very consistently. Keep your initiation all in the same place so that everybody on the team is really accustomed to following up with a specific initiator, a specific type of initiation. Make sure that you get really good at layering your CC. Make sure that you get really, really good at jungle pathing and coordination with your jungler so that your laning phases can be like boosted in a way. Just tri-lane with them or dual lane with them, and otherwise play safe. So you're pulling your wave till your jungler is pathing towards you, and then they arrive at your lane, and you don't need a gank. They can literally just come and help you push the wave out. And when there's 3 people in the lane pushing the wave out, if the opposing team ganks, then it's just a 3v3. So you can compensate for a lot of potential outplay situations and knowledge of the enemy jungler and stuff like that just by like playing your lanes with your jungler, and making sure that you're pulling your lanes until you want to push them out, and then you have your jungler lane with you essentially, or sit in a bush right there while you push it out, and then you base, you buy. So there's all sorts of ways of kind of maximizing that. Of course, the best thing to do is just get better, and then your team play improves and your individual play improves, and your skill of the team as a whole goes up. So that is what I recommend, is training. What is the original question is like, what is the actual gap that you think you could overcome? That's a tough one. I don't think it's going to be more than a division. I think that a gold team could take a plat team, right? I think a silver team could take a gold team. I'm not really sure that a gold team could take a diamond team. That seems to me to be too big. Maybe a silver team can take a plat team, actually. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know the answer to that. Like I said, it depends on how bad the other team's teamwork is. Okay, next question from John Fox.
Hey, Weldon. I wanted to ask you about overcoming trauma in a field of performance, not necessarily esports. Without getting too personal, I think the closest analogy in esports would be if a player went pro, joined a team, and then had the misfortune of that team being an extremely negative and even hostile work environment, and the player was actually forced out of the game due to the incredible pressure of both that environment and just the demands of the job. Now the player wants to rejoin the professional scene and is offered an opportunity to do so, but can't shake the fear and anxiety of possibly reliving the stresses of that first negative and traumatic experience. Thank you.
Okay, John, thanks for the interesting question. So we're going to have to take this out of esport pretty fast, because in esport, you can't have a traumatic situation like this and stop playing and then still get offered a position. Like it's not plausible that you would maintain your skill. Like, for example, if you put... Sorry, a little bit of a cold today. If you put 15 years of training into your soccer and you stop playing for a year, you can probably get your soccer skill back in a little bit of time. But if you put in, 4.5 years of getting good at an esport, and then you stop playing for 6 months to a season, unless you're forgiven, if you're anybody but forgiven, you're going to be basically irrelevant. And I don't think that anybody's going to be offering you a job. So let's say that this is either a traditional sport or like a career of some sort or job of some sort where skill level is kind of like moot, because it's based more of like on a collection of assets that you might have. And we could also say that it's that you were practicing in the meanwhile, which means that the trauma was associated only with taking this into the performance realm and the professional realm, and not so much just doing it. So the trauma didn't force you off the actual game or off the actual sport or off the actual practice of the craft, which wasn't really clear in your question. I thought that it did, but that might not be the case. Okay. So I mean, the simplest and easiest recommendation is to get a counselor and do it. Get a psychologist or get a somebody who's really good to you in terms of like, a significant other or something, and then just do it. Because the best place to repair trauma is with the repetitive event again, and the best way to repair trauma is with somebody taking you through it, not on your own. If you have like a psychology trainer or a psychologist or a psychotherapist or a hopefully cognitive behavioral therapist would be the best, probably, because it seems like they're going to be the ones most conducive to like entering into the traumatic area and dealing with the behavioral issues that are coming up there that you might condition yourself to not do, but you want to do them. So that's how to recommend. Find a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy trainer, therapist, psychologist, and then just do it. There's a ton of practical steps that are involved in accomplishing this. So let's assume that you're going to enter into the traumatic experience, and you're going to have PTSD kind of things that are preventing you from doing behaviors that are conducive to success in this realm. So you're not socializing with your teammates, or you're not taking the clutch moment, or you're not showing up to practice on time, or you're having very high anxiety and it's interrupting your focus because you're focusing on your anxiety instead of your performance. Okay, so CBT is going to fix those mainly by desensitizing yourself to them. So you're going to go to it, and then you're going to talk to the therapist about your internal states, and you're going to work through like what the behavior looks like to just talk to your teammates or to just do these things. And then as far as the focus goes, you're going to be reducing anxiety through the therapy sessions, and then you're going to be reducing anxiety through doing the practices and realizing that nothing bad is happening this time around. And then you're going to be reducing anxiety and then you should increase focus on the training by like clarifying what is important to you and training your brain to focus more on what it is that you want to, which mindfulness, by the way, mindfulness-based stress reduction, you should do that immediately, I would say, because you need to start building up the capacity to be mindful if you're going to avoid the anxiety-induced distraction. So you could, I think if you search mindfulness-based stress reduction, it's like a Kabat-Zinn book or program. You can check out his works, and you can start on that immediately while you're looking for a CBT therapist. Yeah, that's what I recommend. I recommend consulting with a real therapist or a psychologist, not necessarily a sports psychology trainer like myself, because post-traumatic stress disorder and high anxiety of the kind that's debilitating towards your life requires somebody who's qualified in clinical work. It doesn't require it, but you could really make a lot of headway with somebody like that. Okay, last question. Before I get into the last question, I would like to promote my MAC program, which is my training program. If you do not have debilitating, if you do not have debilitating trauma, and you just have like moderate anxiety, then this is the program you should check out. It's basically like a mindfulness-based high-performance program, and it's for any kind of performance. So you can think of it as mindfulness-based sport performance enhancement, or mindfulness-based performance enhancement for your studying or your task or whatever it is you want to accomplish. It's framed a little bit in the esport realm, so I'm going to be giving examples and drills and stuff that are kind of like relevant to League of Legends or CSGO or something like that. But that's mainly because the core audience who's listening to it needs those kind of examples to understand how to translate these principles to that space. You can easily extrapolate them to your performance environment as is. And this is found at mindgames.gg/MAC. It is basically online videos, 47 online videos, and broken up into 7 modules over 7 weeks, and each module has 7 videos. And you go through like a cyclical set of training modules, so 7 of them that take you through the same concepts at deeper and deeper levels, and have a number of little activities in them that you should accomplish along the way. And I'm working on the app right now that is stagnated. That is stagnated after I put in the first around 8,000 euros into the development of it. We had to pause because, well, sales have slowed So I don't have any money to invest in the development of it. But I'm working on the content upgrade still. I'm working on everything else related to the app other than the programming assets. So we got the design and, working on the stuff that's going to go in the app as well. And that is the upgraded version of this program, which, by the way, is the third version of this program that I've created. So it continues to upgrade, and everybody who's ever purchased it continues to be grandfathered into the next version. And that will happen with the app as well. So once that's ready, everybody goes in. Just like that. No extra cost, no upgrade fee, no repurchasing anything of that nonsense. That pricing model, though, is going to go away when the app is launched, because obviously apps require maintenance and updating regularly, which means we need some sort of subscription model to sustain that. But otherwise, now's the time to get in under the wire, right? Check it out and use the code AskWeldon. Use the code AskWeldon to signify that you come from this YouTube video or this Twitch video, and that will give you your discount, $5 discount. And knock the price down to $25. I believe it's bucks. Might be euros, but I think it's bucks. That would be American dollars. Let's transact in US dollars, guys, because, I'm doing a favor for you. The euro is skyrocketing. So if I was doing this in euros, I'd be making more money, and you'd be losing more money. You're welcome. All right, last question from Jan.
Hey, Weldon. Jan here. Greetings from Germany.
Greetings.
So recently, I'm having a bit of a motivational issue where I feel like everything I do, I only do to impress others. And having recently moved to another city where I don't really have a big social network yet, I'm having lots of troubles to motivate myself to work by myself. And I guess my question would be, how can I be content with working by myself and following through on my ambitions? Thanks so much.
Okay, so what you're talking about here, Jan, is basically moving to internal motivators, right? There are intrinsic and extrinsic factors that motivate people. And depending on how you're raised and how it is that you are kind of like how your peer group works out, how your schooling goes, you can have a mixture of intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. You can be more or less internally motivated for some things and externally motivated for some things. And you might notice in your own life that some things you're super internally motivated about, like, for example, playing a video game, and some things you're really externally motivated about, like finishing an essay, where it happens, at the very last minute with the threat of the grade looming over your head to accomplish it. So what you want to do is you want to focus on task-specific motivators. So you want to pick out the tasks that you want to move from external to internal and focus on those, because it's not true that you just become a disciplined person across your entire swath of life. What is true and what is easy is that you take specific things you want to accomplish and you find ways of being internally motivated about them in particular. So if we're talking about, for example, fitness goals, and you did them to impress like other people to be fit, and you want to take that internal, well, first of all, that's pretty difficult, okay? Because health outcomes and health behavior models of motivation are very, I don't want to say disproven. What I want to say is very sketchy, in that they have been shown to be very, very, very weak. So the health behavior model of motivation basically says, like, as soon as you're dying, like tomorrow, then you're motivated by your health. Otherwise, you're going to eat that pizza and you're probably not going to go jogging today. So there's a couple things that you can do to be internally motivated by like fitness. One of them is the sensation of fitness. You should focus on what it feels like and the joy that comes from how your body feels when you're doing it and after you're done with it. So you can focus very heavily on that, and you can tell yourself stories and narration about why that's important to you and why it helps you out with the rest of your life and why this is who you are. You can also take your external motivators that you already have, like impressing other people, and you can make them long-term. You can say, like, okay, in 10 years, I want to be able to sell t-shirts online for lots of money. And in order to do that, I need to be able to impress people through photos with like a very, very like good looking body. And so I'm working towards that every single day, and that's the goal. And I want that to come sooner and sooner. And if I don't work out, it's going to come in 10 years. And if I do work out and eat, it's going to come in like 3 years. And if I do work out and I eat well, it's going to come in 1 year, right? So you just keep that long-term focus very clarified in your head, and that becomes your internal motivator in the present, because it doesn't exist yet, but it's a future that you're building. And in that future, you are impressing other people. So you're relying on the same motivator that you already have. It's like who you are, right? But you're just like bundling that up into like a piece of software inside of you that you're using to run to get to the point where you are. Which, by the way, it's kind of like fake it till you make it, but it's actually real. You're actually being internally motivated by these like, external things. So it's not really fake it. It's kind of just you make it till you make it in a way. Okay. And I think I covered everything, right? We talked about moving your external to your internal by... What was the first thing that I said? I'm trying to remember how I talked about connecting with your first intrinsic motivators. Well, anyway, or the second one, which is to take the ones you already have as external and rebundle them as internal ones just in the more long term. Don't rely on health-related outcomes for fitness stuff or eating stuff. Focus on other internals. Oh, the feel, right? Find things about the sensation or the act of doing it that just bring you joy. And you know that they're going to bring you joy whether you're having a good day or a bad day, right? So that's one focus. And keep that sustained, like build that into a habit. If you want to be perfectly internally motivated, you're going to have to be motivated by the process and then the sensation of tackling the process and the bodily sensation of tackling the process, okay? People who are internally motivated to do the tasks that they're doing usually take great joy in the feeling of overcoming whatever it is that they're working on. And they're so focused on their own journey through that they enter flow state. And then that's even more joyful and more scintillating in a way. And it takes them very far in terms of accomplishing their goals. So that's what I would recommend. If you want discipline, like the kind of discipline where you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do it rain or shine, that's when you have to like justify and self-talk and argue and find ways of essentially like creating the long-term vision that you then adhere to. And for that, you can use any external motivator as long as you're bringing it internal and you're making it long-term. And those people aren't in front of you right now. That you're putting it off like a year, and then they're going to be in front of you and you're working towards that. And that just looks like discipline when you look at it from the outside. Okay, that's the show for you today, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate the call-in questions. I've just hit the end of my question well, so that means you need to fill me up again. Make sure to submit your questions to the show, anchor.fm/Weldon Green, and come to the live show as well, twitch.tv/MyGamesWeldon. Check out the Mac program to support this brand and everything that I do, and I will see you guys tomorrow.